returning back to the oh-so-good world of kaiju figures where it's more or less an addiction at this point. Rather than focusing on the radioactive lizard, let's dive into the good old 90s where ChatGPT described it best:
peak of your civilization.
Where the Cold War ceased to exist, everything released in the theaters were absolute cinema, and mankind made friends with anything they could come into contact with, which included gay robots, extraterrestrial scrotums, to even radioactive lizards. And maybe the most surprising out of the bunch happened to be 3 Muppets through the of nuclear fission transformed into a 3-headed dragon. Now, hear me out. When I first received this figure, I was surprised at the size of the box, as not only does it rival the likes of the previous version of Ghidorah and Shimo, but by opening it up, rather than being divided into separate pieces, in which the consumer had to assemble themselves, Hyatt Toys this time around said,
"Fine. I'll do it myself."
And gave us a whole, thick, and girthy piece. Wait. That sounded wrong.
I have relationships with women and sex with men.
Regardless of my personal taste, the 90s version of Ghidorah is no pushover, as due to its 33cm or 13 inches tall height, it towers over not only space Nazis and would-be Nazis, but even over its kaiju contemporaries. Here's Ghidorah next to Gunpla, Figgots, Figma, and Gojira, Godzilla, 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 and Ghidorah. But something that seems dead on consistent is the lack of any accompanying accessories. That doesn't even surprise me at this point, in which I've given up any hopes of the company doing so in the near future, especially with a particular orange-haired dude in the Oval Office. So if you're looking for a figure that came with any accompanying accessories, can I recommend you the Figma line, as with such extra pieces, one is free to express their harsh desire from expressing their friendship to expressing their deeper feelings.
I have come.
But moving beyond the figure's faults, where Ghidorah stands strong is in the details, and oh did Hyatt prioritize on the details. This is firstly seen through the oh so shiny gold paint job embedded throughout that not only acts and adds an extra layer of authenticity to the figure, but also adds an extra shine factor, as such paint job was not seen throughout the previous iterations of the 3-headed kaiju, differentiating Ghidorah here from the rest of the kaiju roster. This does not mention the suit accurate scales placed throughout the mold that, what makes it a bitch to handle, highlights highest attention to detail, as they went extra in replicating the suit's likeness in figure form, with no hiccups on the dynamic build, from the bendy and dynamic neck to the elastic tails. That would surely put a smile onto any potential owner. But maybe the most impressive part is the head, as due to the excessive size regarding the Heisei series designs, the sculptors were able to add never before seen levels of details, from the rough and scaly skin texture, the reflection of a soul in the eyes, the oh so round nose, the masterfully painted teeth, and opening the mouth, the disgusting amount of details inside that rivals those seen on Shimo. Let's not forget the movable serpent-like tongue that could not only adhere to Ghidorah's serpent-like nature, but can act to express one's inner desires. But definitely the biggest component in Ghidorah's arsenal are the wings that, while relatively small compared to his Monsterverse iteration, is still no slouch, as it dwarfs the main body, allowing the titular kaiju to take off and engage in aerial combat, as well as when on the ground allows Ghidorah to double his size and acts as the perfect intimidation display when engaging rival kaijus. But something that differentiates these wings from his predecessor is that rather than coming out separated, in which the owner is required to attach the said wings, Ghidorah here comes out with all the wings attached, allowing the user to avoid not only the trouble assembling the kaiju, but also frees it from the associated problems with attaching a wing such as the wings falling off with time. But maybe the most divisive aspect regarding the wings is that rather than being composed of the solid plastic as seen throughout the rest of the kaiju roster, Ghidorah here is composed of the soft rubber-like plastic that, while has the advantage of flexibility, lightweight, and ease of use, comes at the cost of feeling cheap alongside the plastic being exposed to the elements either through time or the weather, especially the Korean summer, which allows Ghidorah to be either a breath of fresh air or a cheap cop-out depending on your preference. Now, a point where Haya left some room for improvement was in the articulation department, as their initial releases were more or less statues, especially compared to the Japanese competitors. But with each consecutive release, they pushed such barriers ever more, with their last release, Shimo, being a figure on par with the Monstars line. And I'm glad to say that Ghidorah here follows in the footsteps of their latest release. While the head can't separately move up and down, they can move side to side. The next, being composed of 10 separate pieces connected via ball joints, allows for an unprecedented level of movement that not only surpasses the range seen on its predecessor, but puts even the Monstars iteration to shame. And while the torso and abdomen is composed of separate pieces that gives off the illusion that it can move separately, it's more or less there for show. The wings, as being attached by ratchet joints, only allows for side-to-side movement. The legs can move front and back, side to side. Although a leg split is nigh impossible for this kaiju, knees can't bend over 90 degrees, a slight calf swivel, and a tail similar to the neck being connected via ball joints, but this time around 16 pieces, allows for some unprecedented movement in which Ghidorah here can wield a Stegosaurus-esque club onto rival kaijus and mechs. So, what is there left to say? Haya Toys' first iteration of the Toho line is something truly spectacular, as the company seems to have poured in both their hearts and souls in recreating the likeness of both the kaiju and suit into miniature form. Such depictions are observed through the disgusting level of details, eye-blinding paint job, improved flexibility, and the overtowering size that puts even other kaijus to shame. The only gripe I have with this figure is Haya's consistency with the lack of any accompanying accessories. But at this price, especially in this economy, it's more or less a nitpick at this point. With that out of the way, I would highly recommend this figure to any kaiju hungry enthusiasts out there right now, and give Ghidorah here a ranking of an A+.